Just checking this out here. Can you hear me? One moment, I got to get my camera connected here. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
Good. How do you say your name?
My name is Jacques.
Jacques? Did I say that right?
In English, it would be Jack, I guess.
Okay. Jacques. And then down below, is it Marek? Is that how you would say your name? I don't think he can hear me yet.
Dobra, tam teraz na głośnik.
Ale tak, ale nie wiem, czy mikrofon będzie. Tak?
You hear us?
Słyszysz na zewnątrz?
Ja słyszę.
Ty też.
Ale czy słychać ciebie?
Jest. Słychać.
Ale czy nas słychać?
Tak.
We'll try it here as everybody figures their stuff out. Hi, Brian.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, Mark.
Still getting on with audio there.
Chyba nas nie słychać. Mam wrażenie.
Not sure who else is coming. I do know that Carol
Trzeba włączyć
couldn't
mikrofon.
make it. Mr. Do of the Do Loop fame.
To masz wycisz, tak jakby teraz. Mute, to masz wycisz, tak? Teraz wyciszyłeś się, teraz jesteś.
Teraz jestem cicho. Okej. A teraz jestem?
Teraz jesteś.
So, Jacques, where are you from?
Okay, I'm from Holland. Yeah.
Dan kan we Nederlands praten. Dat kan.
Okay.
And Marek, where are you from?
I'm from Poland.
From Poland.
I'm weak in English. My wife będziesz tłumaczyć. No, powiedz mi coś.
Do you hear us? Do you hear us or not?
Yep, we can hear you.
Do you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we are from Poland, and I will be talking.
Okay, very good. And Peter, where are you from, Peter? I don't know if Peter can hear us yet. I hear a baby somewhere.
Что-то немцы слушают.
Not from here.
Молодец.
Okay. Anyhow, I'm just going to mute, I think, Peter, can you hear us? Okay, I'm going to mute Peter for a minute. I'm not sure where the baby is, but. Oh, no, I think, okay, Mark, I'm just going to mute you for just a minute as, do you guys have a baby there?
No, well, we have, but our baby is not crying.
Okay, maybe it was
It's
Peter
not
then.
our baby. It's not.
I don't hear it now, so it's good. I've been a little bit out of the loop, but I wanted to get this documentation thing up and going, and really with the purpose of being able to hand it off to somebody else. I'm really poor at delegating, and so I had hoped that was something I could do. I don't know if we're to that point yet, but that's what I'd like to start to attempt. Brian was messaging on the discourse forum, just saying how there's going to be a lot of changes coming up very soon in how the program itself is communication wise, how that's going to work. And I think Brian wants to take us through a little bit of that. Before we do that though, I just wanted to say a little bit of an overview, or what I hope to get out of this would be the end product would be a manual or a document that we can just send along and bundle with the software as you download it from GitHub, so that a new user can come in and, without knowing anything about how to hook anything up, have sort of a quick start guide and a little basis of how the program works. So that way they're not left with this overwhelming sense of how on earth am I going to put this all together, and give them a little confidence going forward. So in essence, that's the minimum product. Ideally, the whole thing would be a fleshed out user manual. That would be the end goal. But really just to start off with is the sort of a basic overview of the program, a layout of what all the buttons do, how to hook things up in sort of a step-by-step fashion. So that's my desire. I don't know if it's everyone else's, but I think that's probably a good starting spot. And I think Peter, if I'm correct, this is Peter the Great, as he was listed on the discourse group, and he has a background in tech writing, which I don't, and I think is extremely necessary and a very vital skill. Anyone else who is interested in helping with this, just if you even set up AgOpenGPS on your tractor and got it going, that's qualification enough, because that's really the biggest feat. And I forget how that saying goes, but in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So if even one person has a little bit of knowledge, that's that much more helpful to help the other people along. So that's where I'm at. Brian, did you want to say a couple things before we kind of talk bigger picture and then work our way down?
It's always the same problem. There isn't enough time to do anything. And, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this and talking with Andreas, and because Andreas had originally made that, I forget what it was called, that original document, and it got longer and bigger and bigger and bigger. But then more and more of it became outdated, and maybe the simple answer is we shouldn't have a big document. We should just have a how-to start guide, like a quick start guide, because nobody has time, and nobody that I can think of wants to maintain a large document with a bunch of different setups that keep changing, or, you know, like we just started using like the CMPS IMU, so that all of a sudden all the BNO 55 stuff and the MMA and the dogs, it all goes out the window. So you delete it. So, you know, maybe a smaller, more useful document is the place to look at. And then use YouTube a lot, you know, where you're just, you know, you pick a topic like setting up a vehicle, you know, antenna height and that sort of thing. And it just becomes a tutorial. And then you can just create a channel called AgOpenGPS tutorial. And anyone can shoot a video, and they're fun to do. And just keep throwing these tutorials in, properly named. And if it gets outdated, just delete it and just make another one. You know, rather than trying to keep a paper copy. And the other thought was to package it with AgOpenGPS and then run it like a web page, and you double click on it and it comes up in your browser. Like, I think sometimes web pages are easier to update because it's so compartmentalized. So those are just some thoughts, you know, of, you know, above all, you know, be, what's the word? Realistic with what can be maintained with a program that unfortunately and fortunately keeps changing. So and I think that's why documentation has always suffered, because Brian comes along, you know, Wilbert does a whole bunch of work, and then I come along and make it all outdated. And that's just frustrating. So that's all I could throw in.
Oh, that's good though. As far as just having just something that would alleviate a lot of folks's maybe frustration starting in, right? Just like you're saying, like a quick start guide, whether it's something like that, but just an overview to start with. And that way somebody who comes in, they say, hey, this looks interesting, AgOpenGPS, let's see more about that. They download the program, they get that part running, and then they're kind of left in the dark, right? How do I hook this up to my tractor, even though we're not allowed to do that? How do you just circumvent that and dig right in? And then you look on the discourse group, and all of a sudden there's all this technical information that takes you into the real nitty gritty, and just where do you even start? So I think Bennett was one of the guys that had just said, hey, I started this, here's kind of what I did step by step. And that's essentially what we're looking for. And I think Billy, I think that's how you say it, wanted to do some nice graphics with it. And that's awesome. You know, it's just something straightforward like that. At this point, I think it's probably wise just to ask for the wisdom of the crowd here. Peter, Jacques, Marek, what are your thoughts on documentation in general, and how do we go forward from here?
In general, I think we have two main topics that we need to address. One is building stuff to make AgOpen work. And the second one is using it when you're with the tractor on the field. What do you do with AB lines? How do you store them? Can you store a field? What do you do when you come back to a field where you've been working before? A lot of practical, common practice things, I guess, which are not really documented. I think both topics are pretty dynamic, which means that if you make paper documentation, it will be outdated at the moment you're finished with it. So I think it would be best to create a wiki or something where multiple people can have their tasks, and which would make it doable to maintain it.
So weird. You know, interesting thing is, you're half the same thing he is.
Okay.
So in my the way I see it, I think we need to create a sort of table of contents where we can agree on. And if we've done that, it's a matter of dividing the tasks. Find people who are willing to take a bit of responsibility.
Absolutely. Yep. In a sense that we've been through that whole thing. Like, we started off, we had a wiki, and like Brian said, it just got really disjointed and it didn't apply anymore. And it was a matter of just, it was left out in the open. Whoever wanted to add to it could do so. But like you said, Chuck, if we just assign different people to each task, and then it's their job to maintain it. I think that's probably the best way forward. Peter, what's your thoughts there?
Oh, as far as, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
As far as doing a wiki, I think it would help keep it standardized if you did a style guide. So like, not only like you have standards on spacing and fonts and graphics, how they're formatted basically. So everything will be standardized. And I don't know how you had the old wiki set up, but it sounds to me like with an open source and anyone can edit the wiki, it's going to get really messy. But a style guide on a wiki could, standardize basically everything. And that way it would be easier to keep it simple, maybe.
Awesome. I think that's probably a good starting point then. Mark, did you want to add anything?
Tak, czy chcemy coś dodać?
No, to
Czyliśmy za tym,
żeby podzielić na zadania. Ja bym mógł się zająć hydrauliką i ewentualnie montażami czujników skrętów.
Najwyżej tego też nie powiem. Jesteśmy włączeni, jesteśmy.
Handle sensor, to jest czujnik skrętu.
The more simple, the more it's better. We think it should be divided by tasks. So, for example, Marek is good in something, so he can do something, and maybe another one is better in another field. So we should divide by tasks, and then I think better than tutorials. So how to do it and simple points. 1, 2, 3. How do I do it with photos?
Excellent. Okay, so then the next point then would be, I'll see if I can bring that up a minute. As far as a framework, I'll bring up the one that I forget who, I think Bennett might have posted it, but I'll bring that one up for a minute and see if what you guys think of it, and we'll just kind of toss that around a bit. In the meantime, while I'm bringing that up, Brian, did you want to talk through a little bit where we're heading with AgOpen as far as its changes coming up for V5 or 4.6 or whatever you want to call it?
You want me to share can you allow me to share my screen?
Oh, yeah. If I haven't done so, I will gladly let you do that.
Host disabled participant.
Advanced sharing options. Start sharing with someone else. Okay, try it now there, Brian.
Screen, yes. Screen one it is. I have many screens. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
So I'm still working on the side here. This is a lot like how the original was, but the bottom, as you can see, is very different. It's the whole focus has been on simplifying and making things a lot simpler. And it was so hide and seek before because we kept adding parts and pieces over 3 years without kind of a plan. There's a new version that Daniel and I are working on, but there's a lot of good ideas. But I figured it could change this version to take some of those good ideas and buy us some time, because there's no way that version 5 will be ready for spring. So that's I get feeling that this version is going to be used a while. It runs really, really well. The big difference between it and the old version is AgOpenGPS doesn't have any inputs, like you don't connect the GPS to it. All of that is handled through AgIO now. So here's where you connect your GPS, and then you connect an IMU if you want. And then there's no such thing as a steer module or a machine module or anything like that. You just plug it in and connect it. And then the PGNs and the software will figure out what is connected. So, and you can see that there's no longer any words on here. That was the big thing, was just take off all the words. You know, same with settings. There's save or load and save. And this is like device manager. Oh yeah, allow. Come on. You know, if you want to look at your ports and stuff, well, then we can just bring it up, you know, for here for USB ports. And then scan ports, and then the ports come up. I could plug something in, but I think you get the idea. And here it lists the ports. You know, here's N-trip. It's designed to be really simple. Connecting, we already did that. But then like AgOpenGPS now, so that does all the communication. So you can turn off AgOpenGPS, right? And everything is still, all your stuff is still connected. Your USB, your, you know, all your connections to the outside world are all done through AgIO. You want to run AgOpenGPS. All right, I'm doing software on it right now. But you would click that button and up comes did I exit it? No. Up comes AgOpenGPS. So all the inputs are then separated from AgOpenGPS. So in terms of documentation, now you can talk about AgOpenGPS and you can talk about connection to the real world. So those two are very separate. So that helps a lot right there. So now the menuing in AgOpenGPS is just, you know, field boundaries, headlands, contour, stuff like that. And then you have your buttons on this side. The tools on this side are, you know, like the steer chart, webcam, recorded path, things like that. No field that doesn't come up. And then here, if AgIO isn't running, you can just click this and AgIO comes up. So it's pretty versatile that way. And then the big change, did anyone like the settings before where you had to hide and seek and find all the different settings? Well, now the settings is all in one place. Again, that makes documentation almost unnecessary, because here is the little tractor. Well, that's the vehicle. So you click on that. Here you pick your type of vehicle. Is it four-wheel drive? Is it a combine? Is it a normal tractor? And then you can do your settings. You do wheelbase, turn radius, track, the antenna, and then these pictures change depending on what you selected. Like if we selected a combine, and then you go to antenna, that was a combine in the settings. So really, do you need, I mean, you don't need much for instructions because it should be intuitive. So that makes the documentation job a lot easier. So antenna settings, and then steer settings, line thickness, how far do you want to snap? How many pixels per, you know, little green dot, manual or automatic. So what's missing here is all the words. So it's really easy to translate when there's no words. You know, and it's the same with, and it's the same format. Got the little gear to pick your attachment style. Suppose you want a dragging type or a, what's it called? Non-fixed swinging type hitch. Here you set your hitch length and your drawbar length. Here you set your sections like before. Here's your timing for turn on, turn off, and your offset. And then we just got to make some switches. Willie's going to make some switch pictures yet. And then data is the same way. Where's my position from? Now this is simple. I got rid of 90% of the settings. Is your position from GGA, RMC, or OGI? And do you want an RTK alarm? And heading, where's the heading coming from? And that's it. You don't have to pick a source for correction because it does it all automatically now. Is you plug an IMU in, it'll use the IMU for correction. If you have an IMU on the steer board, it just uses it. If you disconnect the IMU off the steer board, it just stops using it. So it's all auto set. So there is no more settings for that. Roll, you can zero it, and then you can filter the roll and invert the roll. Like if you're, you should be positive as you go to the right. Well, if it's negative, then you just hit invert roll. And now it's the other way around. It doesn't matter the source, because before that was on the auto steer board. So you don't care, or the operator shouldn't be concerned about where the roll is coming from. I mean, they will know or should know, but they shouldn't have to go to 6 different places and do a whole bunch of settings. They should just be able to invert the roll. So it just makes it 1,000 times simpler. U-turn is here now too. I got rid of all the sequencing stuff, all that, that's all gone. It's just U-turn where you set your U-turn distance. And again, we need a few pictures here, but we eliminated most of the words. The steer settings, there's still some words here, but again, we'll get some pictures like for inverting the WAS, inverting the motor direction, inverting relays, the Cytron and stuff like that. Those are hard to eliminate, but everybody knows what a Cytron is because you had to buy one. So a lot of these things don't really need a lot of translation. But here again, you can see that probably 50 or 60% of the settings are gone. You just set, is my wheel angle sensor going the wrong way? Is my motor turning the wrong way? Or my relays turning off when they should be turning on? And do I want a steer sensor? Do I want a switch or a button? Do I want, differential A to D converter? And what kind of motor driver do I have? And then you set your Ackerman. And then you send it. Pretty simple. Same with machine module for headland lift and hydraulic tool lift, that sort of thing. So everything is here. And there's no text for the menuing. Once you use it a couple times, you'll recognize the clock as your time settings for sections off and on. And as you make the changes, of course, it just happens. So a lot simpler. So that saves a ton of words right there. What else is there? The rest, the field stuff is all basically the same. I hope to, I don't know if I'll have time to turn all of the guidance lines like we used to do this, right? And then you'd have to make a line, or you could do touch, make an A-B line. I mean, all this stuff is pretty darn simple. I think I'm way past my field. I don't know where my field is. This stuff is all the same, basically. Boundary is greatly simplified. Oh, goodness. Just hang on a sec here. You guys mind me going through this? No? Okay. Let's just exit this field. So we'll create a new field. We'll call it docs. And then, like the boundary screen is much simplified. I mean, guess what you push to add a boundary? Big plus. Do you want to drive it or do you want to load from KML? We click drive. I put a couple of those buttons in here. So now when we start recording, and we're recording our boundary, you can pause it, you can create individual points, but this button where you have to choose which side of the implement it's on, well, just put it here. Or you can set your offset 3 or 0, have it in the middle, or have it on the outside on either side. So just by using a couple of buttons, you kind of, the documentation or how to use it becomes much easier because you can just kind of do everything here. And then when you're happy with it, done. And then there's your boundary. Bring up your boundary again. And there's our outer boundary. There's no more drive around because we eliminated all the geofence stuff. So again, this is all quite simple. Pick it and delete it. Complete the boundary or delete the boundary, yes. Done. So it's a lot easier to make good documentation if the program's a lot easier. If you
Absolutely.
if you
Absolutely.
catch my drift. So that's the goal, is to just freaking cut these buttons and record it. I guess I must have messed up somewhere. Recorded path is just 3 buttons for record it, drive it, and delete it. And it works without a boundary, with a boundary, all that sort of thing. Oh, steer form. Steer form now. It has like the WAS 0. Does this still work? I don't know if you recall, like before, like WAS or the zeroing used to be from 0 to 255 and 127 was in the middle, and it just kind of didn't make any sense. But now, if you're, let's set this, so you can reset that to 0. So it's in degrees, it's not in counts. So if our WAS is at, down here, it's at 1.7, or say 0.4, all we do is we hit 0. And now our WAS is zeroed. So as you're driving along, then this is a very accurate how straight am I going gauge. So you can see we're turning at 0.3 degrees to the left. So you keep, you know, steering till you're in the middle. Now you know that you're driving straight, at which point you hit 0. So simple. And what was the other thing? And then there's still drive like before. And then there's this, I don't know about you guys, but it was one of the most frustrating things I recall was, how do you know when your wheels are at 45 degrees?
Mhm.
You know, you'd have to, so anyway, this is, I'm going really fast here. Slow down. So you pick some sort of a speed, and then let's go, you know, at an angle of 6 degrees or whatever, and then you just hit record. So you'd be driving along with the wheels, you know, nice and consistent, hold the wheel nice and straight, and just let the thing count up. Going, going, going. Bigger circle than I thought. Okay, it comes up and it says 6 degrees. So we've driven a 6 degrees, our steering angle is 6 degrees. So now it tells you, and our actual steer angle is 6.9. So now all we do is we turn down the counts per degree, or turn up, I should say, until it matches this. And we could do this automatically, of course. But now you know what to set it to. I can't do it. I have a remote, I'm, of course, obviously not in a tractor, but there's some limitations here. But you can see that, you know, when you read 6 degrees here, adjust the counts per degree to read 6 degrees. And then it's right. So then you could make a left turn and see how far you are off. And you could also calculate your Ackerman.
So just to clarify that, that diameter that you have in the recording portion, that's from the GPS position, or that's calculated based on, okay.
That's using the GPS position.
That is pretty slick.
So it just makes it all a lot simpler to use in the first place. So a bit of a teaser, but yeah, and then the menuing and then for saving and stuff is just one, like in settings here, we want to save this as Wilbert. Save it. There it is. You have to save everything as an entire system. It's not broken out in vehicle and environment and tool. There's advantages and disadvantages, you know, because you'd have to change one or the other, but just for the sake of time and for this version, you know, if you have a tractor and you set up the tractor and you have an implement and you want to change the implement, well, just save this as Wilbert with Harrows. And then just modify Wilbert with Harrows to change the tool. You know, suppose we wanted one section 7 meters wide. Then we would go back to here, and then we can go save as. And now Wilbert with Harrows is set up. We've taken all the settings, all the GPS settings, all the environment settings and everything, and we've just added to something that we knew was, say, like Wilbert with a cedar. We've added that to Harrows. So then you can save as many as you want, and it saves all of the settings.
So going into a field, like, can you walk us through that a minute? If you were to start from scratch, say, and you drive into a field that you've been in before, and you already have your boundary recorded or whatever, right, how would you go back to that field with a different implement?
Okay, we'll exit the field. Well, then you would go to settings. And right now we're Wilbert with Harrows. You know, I mean, you still have to enter the information. But if you went in with Wilbert with the cedar, that's this one, then you just load it. Load Wilbert. And now it's Wilbert with, see, now we're back to our 5 sections.
Right on.
So you would have like your John Deere with a cedar, 4-wheel drive with, you know, Harrows. They just, each of these, and you can add as many as you want, they're kind of like a complete unit. You know, or a tractor and a sprayer, or a high clearance sprayer, or a combine. You know, it's my Gainer R75. It's, so you just save the thing and then remember it. Set all your tools, you know, set your tool width and all these things, and then just save it. And then if you're in the field and you already have a boundary, you can do drive in. And there's no fields found because we don't have a field in this exact spot. But then it will list the fields that you're close to or in. And then if you just want to resume or new or open an existing one, here it lists the fields. And you can sort by distance away or by area, that sort of thing. By area, by field name. It's pretty simple. Clicking on the speed here shows you all your information, all your GPS information, your field information, the tool that you have, you know, your GGA statements, the VTG, OGI, AVR, HDT, all the different stuff is all in one window. And yeah, so it's, I mean, it does all the stuff it used to do, headlands and tram lines and that sort of stuff. But I think it's just a lot more intuitive. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a much more simpler interface, and buttons are, it's clearer what they do.
Yeah.
Less language just written about. Yeah. There's probably other takes out there. We can listen to those too.
Yeah, I'm not really the expert on this software. This is my brother. He's a Kansas farmer on the
Okay.
forum. But it's not all as simple as you think from my perspective. I've used it a little bit in the tractor, but yeah, Just throwing that out there. It's not always all quite as simple.
I should maybe be more specific. It's a lot simpler.
Okay.
Because I'm just bringing up the old version right now. And you'll just see immediately.
I think that's Peter, that's a great perspective though, because for like Brian, who's been, staring at this thing for years now,
Yeah.
it's easier to think, well, this is simpler for him, but for just someone coming brand new, it's not maybe as intuitive. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up there, Peter, as far as how do we take what's here now and through either documentation or through just some, how do you say that? Through documentation or just an improvement in an overlay to explain to a user.
Well, you could just like link a quick reference guide type little paragraph onto the buttons on the software, but
actually you can't, because it's touch screen, and as soon as you touch the button, you activate the button, so you can't really bring up
okay, sure.
There's always limitations with WinForms that you keep bumping into.
Is there, just thinking out loud here, someone else probably has a better take on it, but if we just took like a JPEG of that screen that we see right there, it'd be pretty easy to just make like just a tooltip screen, right? Just where we say, okay, here's the picture, you touch on the picture and then it brings up a tooltip, but it doesn't do any function other than just say, here's what this button's for. Would that be an interactive solution, or is it better just to take a picture and then draw an arrow and say, this is what it's for?
What if there was a help icon here that brought up that image? The question mark?
Yeah, yep.
And then, was it you, Wilbert, that did that before, where you circle the things and then in red?
Yeah.
You kind of what it is?
I had done that once before, and then, the buttons all changed, and then it changes it around. But that's why I was thinking if you had something where it was just interactive, right? So that you just change what it says in the text box, I guess, that would pop up.
Yeah. And you could have those text boxes in a separate file, and you could update those.
Yeah, and it could really just be a web page for that matter. Like Jacques, you were saying, like on a wiki, you could easily do that, like in a CSS sheet, probably. I don't know if a wiki would work with that, but like if you just coded in HTML and then it's just like a button overlay, right? There's silence out there, so I don't, over the whole world.
It's a complex program, and there's a lot of things to it. If the first time, if you've ever run AutoCAD or Photoshop, if you ever run Photoshop, you sit there and you look at it and go, how do I make a freaking picture? I think it's that same overwhelming shock.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let's see, I'm just looking at my clock now. This is awesome. I really like seeing this preview. All these folks that are joining us here on the Zoom meeting, I think you came with the idea that we wanted to get some steps toward documentation. So maybe this was a little too big picture and you wanted a little practical. Maybe I'm just going to bring this screen up a minute and we can talk through it. I don't know if you'll see my pointer or not. So just one moment. Okay, can everyone see that? You see what's there?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was what, I have to remember who shared it now. Villy shared, perhaps?
Bennett, I guess.
Bennett, okay, that's who did it. And this was kind of his framework, right? And I think from tech writing, Peter's going to correct me here, but usually you start with something like this, right? A map of sort of how everything is structured, and then you take one component at a time. So for example, you'd find and assign someone to do this GPS receiver portion and then work through that. And then you'd find your best people who would just write a little section on that. So that's like, that would be a large, fully fleshed out manual. That's, I think, how you would go about it. So maybe I think this whole framework here has been simplified through what Brian was saying with AgIO, in that all this chunk right here suddenly gets almost, we almost don't have to document it that way, as far as it's just all on the AgIO side, and you don't have to go through and go to the main screen and say, here's the settings, and then here's what this button does, and it brings up this screen, and it brings up this screen, and it brings up this screen, right? So now we're just like, here's your one screen, here's the tabs, and then move forward. So suddenly this framework has become a lot simpler. So that kind of brings us back, I think, to square one, which would be, let's start with a table of contents and say, what does our quick start guide need to be? And then, Brian, I think if we, and I'll take your guys' take on this here, but should we aim for just shoot straight for version 5 and build the documentation for that, instead of doing documentation for what we already have and then, you know, redoing it once version 5 comes out? What's your guys' thought? I want to keep it simple.
I think the version 5, if it's really a big improvement, you might as well just do it now.
Marek or Jacques, what do you think?
It depends a bit how you look at it. I think the program consists of a lot of smaller parts, and the whole program is changing, but a lot of the smaller parts are just remaining there. So an A/B button, for instance, you can describe what you can do with it and what you should not do with it, and it will probably work in version 7 as well. So I think start describing the program, the functions within the program as it is now.
Yeah, I think you're right that a lot of those simple things are going to be the same no matter what version you're in, and they should just be they should be described. I would agree with that. Yeah. Marek, or I forget, I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Anna?
Anna.
Yes. We think we should focus on version 5, because if we still will be doing all the versions, it will be all the mess. So I think we should focus on version 5 and do it right. Okay,
good. So now I'm going to get a little bit more practical now. What are your skill sets? What are you guys strong in? What do you feel you could contribute to as far as the documentation? So Jacques, what's something that you think you would like to tackle?
Wiem, dobry od strony praktycznej, czyli montaż, zwłaszcza na zaworach hydraulicznych. Hydraulik.
I think it's difficult to say that now. Maybe it would be easier to have a sort of table of contents. And to let people subscribe to parts of this table of contents, and then we can go from there.
Okay. So I bring you in the loop here too. Andreas has Microsoft Teams kind of set up, and we have a document there that we can add people to. So that was kind of my thought, is to start there. Like a wiki is good. We could do that too. I just thought it might be nice to keep styles and formatting the same in a Word document that we can all share and work on. Like Google Docs works too, but it's not as nice with formatting if you're doing outline format, whereas Microsoft Word is pretty good at that. I don't know what Peter's take is on that, but what do you think,
I've
Peter?
always used Microsoft Word. I know a lot of my classmates are like split even, like half of them use Docs and half of them use Word. It just depends on what you use in high school, really. You stay with the same one.
Good. Marek, sorry, back up a little, Peter. So your background is in tech writing and stuff, but like,
I'm a senior in college right now in tech writing. So like I'm taking classes and I know like some of the theory and what they teach as best practices, but I really don't have much real world experience. Like, yeah.
Well, you're in the right place.
Yeah.
This is you could put this on your CV and on your resume. There you go. Okay, so you're good at maybe like, could you do the style guide or style formatting or something? Would you be able to work us through that?
Probably, yeah. Like make sure all the pictures are, like you'll doing a lot of screenshots.
Okay.
Like I was taught in school that you're supposed to make those into thumbnails so they don't take up so much space. Just like having all those like the exact same format like that, I think that would really help. It helps readability, I think.
Perfect. Marek, what's your strong suit? Would you like to tackle as far as in documentation?
Teraz te twoje mocne strony.
Czyli hydraulika,
Hydraulic,
valve, angle sensor,
angle sensor,
sposoby montażu.
and practical parts, because we are farmers and we have a lot of practical parts in a lot of machines and tractors. So we have a lot of photos, and we are good and practical on the field. We are doing it, and yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so first step from here now is on the discourse form, I'm going to put a link, I think I can do this, where we just to that the Word doc that we can all share. So what I would like to do is get a table of contents. I'll draft the initial table of contents and then we can throw it around and comment on it however we want. But then that's in one place then. I would like to kind of quickly know if you guys would prefer a Word document or if you'd prefer a wiki. So maybe I should start with that too. So hands up for Word document.
Word documents to wiki.
Chyba Word documents.
Okay. So two of us want a Word document.
Word documents? Now Word documents?
Yes.
You'd like Word document too? Okay, so
Yes.
3. And Jacques, you're up for the wiki.
I'm a minority.
No, that's okay. But I think
maybe we should start with the Word document, but as far as actual finished product, the wiki might be better.
Yep. That's great. All right. So from here, moving forward, I haven't been able to hand off my duties yet, so I'm going to hang on for just a little bit longer, and I'll just try and keep some people in the loop. Now,
can I throw one thing in, Wilbur?
Yeah, please.
With AgIO, it's kind of like two main sections. Like Mark, you're talking about the practical side. Well, maybe you be in charge of AgIO and all the hardware that connects to it. And then you have AgOpenGPS and the settings and the operation of AgOpenGPS. And kind of make those two categories where the first thing you do is you put all your parts in and get everything connected and talking. And once that's done, then you talk about doing settings and operating AgOpenGPS. So you can kind of divide the two worlds into two because AgIO will, no matter the version going forward, AgIO will be the hardware king. He will do all the talking and communicating the outside world. And, you know, he's like the traffic cop. My fear with talking about using or doing everything from version 5 is version 5 doesn't exist yet. Or we don't even know what it's going to look like. So, but
The things you've shown us, Brian, that's all version 4?
yeah,
Oh.
slightly updated. So I think, but the AgIO, and because I think that's where most people struggle, is how do you hook the thing up? How do you test it? How do you make sure that it's working and talking? You know, just answered 1,000 million questions. And those questions are always, how do I install the wheel angle sensor? You know, what parts do I buy for the board? Can I buy a board from Andreas? You know, what ports do I use? What do I need for a tablet? You know, all of those things. And then, yeah, well, you can just run AgOpenGPS. And if you set your steer angle a little bit wrong, that's not the end of the world. But if your communication is wrong, or if you buy the wrong chips, or if you hook it up wrong and it doesn't work, you know, to say like, this is the way you should hook it up. I think that is really, really important documentation that is needed now and in the future with AgIO. And again, it's very separate. So it'd be time well spent.
Yeah. I think Kurt had brought up perhaps about making videos of that, which I think is a great idea. Videos are awesome. The only down part of a video is it only works in one language.
Well, but you can translate. I've translated several.
Yep. So did you translate it? Did you let YouTube auto translate it, or did you actually go through and transcribe everything you said?
2 months ago, they removed that feature because people were hacking YouTube's and putting in their own translations of not nice things. But then now the deaf community is up in arms about it. So I don't know what's going to happen, but they just took it out. It was so nice. You could just record in English, say you wanted, you wanted subtitles, and then you could just pick your language and it would generate them. It was so easy, but now you have to take it down. You have to copy and paste it into Google Translate, and there are translators, but it's just like 20 steps just to do one language now.
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated.
Sorry, I got a 4-year-old just jumping around here. And I think someone else has the same text ringtone as my phone, which is throwing me off. So someone's phone is going off, and I think, that's my telephone, but thankfully it's not. Okay, sorry, I got sidetracked. I think then, as far as the practical side, the AgIO, if that can be our focus. So here's what we're going to leave with today. I'm going to share that Word document up in the discourse group. And then I think I might have to add you all individually. Are you comfortable with me, if I get your email addresses from you, putting you in on that document? Show of hands. Yes. All right, good. Then I'll put you in on the document. And then we can hash out what the table of contents looks like, what you think should be prioritized. From there, we'll divvy up each thing, and then we can throw it out to the bigger discourse group if there's more folks that want to join in and really get to work on it. Then Brian, I think maybe from you, we'll probably just need some screenshots and that kind of thing that we can plug away at it.
I'll be putting it up on GitHub, and then you can just run it.
Yeah, that'll work. Perfect.
It's less big. I finally got all the communication stuff sort of kind of figured out, but then you can just use it with the simulator and play with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll keep changing too a bit, but it's getting to the point where less and less.
Excellent.
You just got to stop somewhere. It's like the grain is dry enough. Go combine.
Yeah. Great. I think I'm going to wrap things up. I got places to be, and I'm sure you guys do too. I really appreciate everybody coming in and helping out on this. I think it's something that I know I've dropped the ball on from the past, and I'm glad that there's folks on board that want to get this job tackled. So the goal would be to have a quick start guide ready for spring. And thankfully spring in Canada comes, at least spring by me, comes a little later than everywhere else. So I'm going to say that it's ready for Canadian spring to give us a little more time.
May 1st.
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
It's 40 below here right now.
So should we leave it there? Are you guys comfy there? Do you have anything else to add? Maybe I'll leave it there. I've been doing too much talking.
My brother put all the hardware together for one of our tractors, so he knows quite a bit about it. I wouldn't know the first thing about it, but he knows all about the wheel angle sensor and all that stuff. If any of that needs to be gone over. So
Excellent. Is Kansas Farmer? So I know people by their screen names. So you're the grading guy? Like you're doing all the stuff for the G10 and going through?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome. I was really tickled to see that project take shape. So looks
Me
like
too. That's cool.
it was neat. You took it and ran with it, and that's really cool. So looks like you're going to be busy doing documentation for that too, Peter.
yeah, maybe.
All right. Before we go, I like seeing who else is here. So Shah, can you tell us a little bit about like your farm or your interest in it? Do you have a farm, or are you just interested in the software side? I'm curious.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I have a small farm in the Netherlands. I grow potatoes, I grow wheat. I used to have a job besides my farm. I worked in agricultural education as a teacher. I've been working as a product manager for an internet service provider. And I became 60 last year, and I decided I will only do my farm and my campsite. And so I have time for to do things with AgOpenGPS.
Neat, very cool. And Marek, or Anna, can you tell us a little bit about your farm or what you guys do?
No to powiedz, że mamy farmę.
We have
50 hektarów.
we have a farm 150 hektary.
Hectares?
To hektar.
Yes. That's it.
Very nice. So
Uprawiamy
you
głównie
grow.
kukurydzę, corn.
Yeah, mostly corn.
Excellent.
Mostly corn. That's it.
And Peter, we heard you're a senior at college doing tech writing, but maybe tell us a little bit about your farm too.
Yeah, our parents have a farm.
On jest na ostatnim roku studiów.
It's primarily livestock. We do antibiotic
Jesteśmy na
pigs,
ostatnim
and we have a small dairy. I think we're doing like 500 acres of crops around, and then we have some pasture.
Very cool. Okay, with that, I'm gonna say goodbye, and we'll put everything on the form and go from there. By the form, I mean discourse group. So we'll look for stuff there, and I'm gonna be requesting your email addresses to add you to that Word document. Sound good?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. Have
Thank
a
you.
great night, evening. Thanks, Brian. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.